Welcome to the Yoga Energy with Katie podcast. I'm your host, Katie O'Byrne. I'm a yoga and Reiki teacher and I am obsessed with learning. I can't wait to share with you some of the things that we learn here on this podcast. So stay tuned for some weird and wonderful conversations. Welcome back to the Yoga Energy with Katie podcast, episode 2. I've been sitting here at my computer for a good while now. I had some edits to do on this week's episode, and I'm also obviously recording this intro. And I have pressed re-record so many times. And I have changed what I wanted to talk about so many times. So first of all, I wonder, how do podcasters come up with what they're going to talk about? This is why I have people on the podcast, because I'm sure they'll have something to talk about and it's easy to ask questions. It's actually quite intimidating just having my own voice. But it is my podcast and it is my voice going out there, so I will do this and I'll try make it as interesting or as easy to listen to as possible. But I can't keep pressing re-record. This has to be the last time. After the last retake, I just thought to myself, you know what, let's take a little break, step away. I'm overthinking it now. There's too many things going through my head and it's like all the words are trying to get out at the same time. So I stopped and I thought, what can I do to become more prepared to speak? And what I usually do is do a little mantra. So just before this take, I sat for about 10 minutes and I chanted a mantra to Saraswati. Saraswati is the goddess of language and knowledge and sound. She is the one who flows. So I asked for her help. I am trying to connect to that energy, the energy that will help my voice to flow. It will help my language to be clear. It will help my message to be clear. And I think that's the problem. I didn't have a clear message to share with you, so I started recording and I was kind of like, oh, let's just see how it goes. So maybe that was the issue. I should have thought of a clear message and then record it. But I didn't, and here I am, and I done my mantra, and I feel much more calm about this now. Mantra is always a really great support to me. And I don't know why I forgot about it before I started recording the first time. That will have to be my little ritual now, to do a mantra before I start recording. So the mantra I used was Om Aim Saraswati Namaha Om, which basically means I'm bowing or I'm honoring Saraswati. And my intention was to ask for her guidance. And hopefully it's working. I am now about 3 or 4 minutes in, which is the longest I've gotten. I've stopped and pressed re-record so many times already. This week, I am speaking to Alyce Harrison, who is a yoga teacher. She is one of the founders of the Yoga Picnic, a beautiful yoga festival coming up on the 7th of July. And she is also a lawyer who specializes in criminal law. So we have a really vast and varied conversation. Of course, we speak about yoga, but also we speak about her work in law, how she's managed to fit it all in, how she used her yoga practices to support her in that work. We speak a lot about the balance of life and how she juggles things and balances things as a mother. We also talk on some of her work in the criminal world, her work with her work with people who have committed crimes such as murder. We also speak about social action and the genocide that's happening in Gaza at the moment. The main reason I wanted to speak to Alyce was because we're part of the Revolution Period group. And a couple of weeks ago, she put a message into our group and asked, "What is love asking of me?" And that question really, really struck me. I thought, if we asked that question before every situation, wouldn't it be a much better world? And as I was doing my mantra to Saraswati, I also asked that question of myself: what is love asking of me right now? So I decided to stop, to take a break, to be more compassionate to myself rather than getting all flustered about, I have to record again. I can't believe this. This is annoying. So I thought, no, let's just take a break. Love is asking me to be more compassionate to myself, to be easier with this. This podcast is not about me adding another task to my day, but it's about connection and connecting to people. And like with any of my work, if it gets too intense or it starts to have an impact on me negatively, I'm not going to continue doing it. So I didn't allow myself to get annoyed with the fact that I kept re-recording. So before we get into this week's podcast, I want to remind you all of my online class that happens every Thursday evening at 8:30 p.m. Irish time. I would love to see you online. It is an hour-long practice to help you unwind from your day and to prepare you for a really good night's sleep. In a couple of weeks' time, I'll be taking a break from my in-person classes, so there won't be any classes in July and for some of August. But during that time, I will be doing more online classes. So check out my website, which I'm also updating at the moment as well. You will see new links from my website, a new booking system. So there will be changes on that. It's still taken a little while to finalize it all. It's been a big job, but I'm almost there. So you might see some changes on that. That's all for now, really. I have lots of other things in the pipeline, but nothing structured as of yet. So I won't share anything with you. But hopefully in the next couple of weeks, I'll have some exciting, possibly retreats, possibly more trainings. But for now, I want you to listen to the conversation I have with Alyce Harrison. Hi, Alyce.
Hi, Katie. How are you?
Good. Welcome to the podcast. I'm
Thank
delighted to
you.
have you here. So Alyce Harrison, we met around this time last year, actually, at the Bealtaine
Yes,
Festival in Ushnock, and I suppose we're kind of involved in the same kind of menstrual cycle community,
yes,
um, and we seem to have a lot of similar interests. So I'm really just excited to chat to you about a few things. So, like I said, you were kind of on my radar to ask you to come onto the podcast. Um, because of our shared interests. But then in the group that we're in with Katie McGuire, you had sent in a message into that. Just that really stoked my interest. So maybe we'll talk about that bit later on. But yeah, so when you sent that message in, I'm like, oh, let's get together, let's have a chat and see. Because what you'd said about it was a little bit about communication actually as well, and how people can talk freely. And yeah, I just thought it was going to be an interesting conversation. So we will
yeah.
get
I'm
to that,
excited.
but
Yeah.
do you want to maybe say a little bit about yourself, to introduce yourself in any way, about what you do, where you're from, and
Um, yeah. So yeah, I'm a yoga teacher from Galway. And I'm living in Westmeath. Um, and I'm a mammy and a lawyer. Yeah, and I've made some kind of changes career-wise recently to kind of allow myself to do a bit more of the mothering, but also the yoga stuff. And so yeah, I do run events through kind of centered on the Celtic calendar up at the Hill of Ishnock. And I run other events like for women, um, and kind of on the menstrual cycle, but also just kind of women gathering and women's yoga. I trained in women's yoga as well after my main yoga teacher training, and I trained with Lou Horgan. So I really brought that in to my teachings as well. And then I'm one of the founders of the Yoga Picnic, so I've kind of set up that as well. Um, and yeah, that's just a little intro. I'm sure there's
You
lots
were
of
saying
other
about
things, but
your interest in like the Celtic festivals and things like that. So I'm
mhm.
presuming that might have come from your dad, maybe.
Yes, yeah. So my dad started doing yoga back in the 70s in San Francisco. And he's been doing it ever since, and he's a yoga teacher now as well. And he set up the Celtic School of Yoga. So he's written a book on the Celtic School of Yoga as well. So it's basically this, it's kind of, eh, he's a folklorist and he studied this for a long time. And basically, his practice of yoga, like we would have always kind of had it in our house, and he's a musician as well. So the music would have been there as well. But he started to kind of blend I suppose, the traditions of yoga, and also see the commonalities between
Mm.
the philosophies of yoga, but also the Celtic traditions in our
Mm.
country, and in this part of the world, and kind of notice that they're quite similar, and that the connection to nature, the celebration of the rhythms of nature, are there in both of them, and the gods and the goddesses are quite
Mm.
similar. And so we started, kind of, we learned a lot about that, I suppose, through him, and based on that, started celebrating the cross quarter festivals with yoga events up on the hill of Ishnock. And so yeah, that would have been his kind of influence, definitely.
Mm. Yeah, because it's interesting because when I did my first teacher training in India, when they were talking about the goddesses and the connection to the land and like India being the mother and the goddess in of the Ganges and the river goddesses and just all these things they were talking about, it just all felt really familiar to me, even though I didn't know
Mm,
why. Like I would have had a basic understanding of Celtic mythology from like primary school education. And for some reason, all of the Indian traditions felt familiar.
mm,
And it was only afterwards then when I had come back and been practicing or been teaching for a while. And then I started to come across more of the Celtic festivals and um yeah, people celebrating our own traditions. And I was like, oh, there is a connection here somehow.
mm.
Um, I
Yeah, that kind of
suppose,
paying attention to nature, to
yeah,
the sun and the moon, and paying attention to how the just those that rhythm of nature, kind of.
yeah.
And that's in us as well. I mean, it's external, but it's internal, and especially as women, I think that
Mm.
rhythm and kind of paying attention is so relevant to us, and we can kind of get caught in our busy world, and the busyness of life, and the modern world as we know it,
Mm.
and coming back to those rhythms, coming back to nature, coming back to noticing and paying attention, as all for all people, but in particular for women, is really important.
Mm. Yeah, and I wondered then about what your trainings. So you trained to be a yoga teacher first, and then I think
Yeah.
you went on to do some training with Kitty, and
Uh,
involvement in the menstrual cycle awareness. Did you have like what was your basis on the menstrual cycle before you got involved with Kitty's work?
well, actually, I did my main training around it was with Lou Horgan. So
Okay.
it was women's yoga and pregnancy yoga that I did. So I did that, and it was this beautiful kind of time of my life, because when I started the women's yoga training, I wasn't pregnant, and then I got pregnant during the middle of that, and
Oh, wow.
I just had this kind of like this experience, this arc of experience through that cycle of learning all about women's yoga and the importance, I suppose, of our cycles, in terms of obviously our menstrual cycle, but also the pregnancy cycle, and just the kind of yoga practices that can align with that, because traditionally, I suppose a lot of the asana practices might have been, or would have been, specifically tailored for the male body, and maybe not so much paying attention to the female cycles and that. So yeah, it really would have been through Lou, and then I started to work with Kitty then through her festival, the Revolution Period festival.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're both involved in that again this year, the revolution period.
Yes.
What is your involvement in it in this year?
This year I'm doing I think now I'm doing float and flow, which is like an outdoor swimming and like a women's circle and
Wow.
and swimming. I've actually so I moved to Westmeath just before COVID actually, and I tapped into a gorgeous group of women mostly who swim in the lakes here, and I'm from Galway. I lived on the sea the whole way through,
Mm.
um, or not on the sea, but just by the sea,
Yeah.
um, and it was just something that was really important to me when I came to SME because I kind of felt like that emotional attachment, that feeling of kind of freedom and expansiveness and everything that I had with the sea wouldn't be with me in Westmeath, and so
Mm.
I kind of searched out a group of um, people who swam in the lakes, and I found a gorgeous group and started kind of swimming with them, and then started kind of doing. We started gathering for the full moons and kind of just bringing in like circles and stuff into that.
Mm.
And so yeah, I just found that the community and connection that you can find through those things that connect you to nature, and really with like cold water swimming, you're really it's meditative, like you're getting so into your body, you can't think about anything else.
Mm.
And not only that, it's got that like that community and connection side of it as well. Um, so yeah, it's a really beautiful experience. So I just wanted people to experience that, but also bring in the cycles and the rhythms as well.
Mm. I'm just wondering, so like you've obviously got a massive blend of different styles and different things that you do for women's circles and the events that you offer. Um, so I think you were originally trained in like Anusara yoga.
Yeah, it's
Is that right? I
yeah,
don't really know much
exactly.
about that.
Yeah, well, so it's actually it was the Celtic skill yoga I trained with Benita Wolf and Jack Harrison. So the is a kind of a it's based on the Anusara principles, um and um yeah, it's kind of it's also like vinyasa and then the Celtic philosophies as well have been very strong in that too. Anusara is I suppose it's more of a kind of a feminine type of flowing yoga, and the instructions are kind of surrounding kind of spiraling the body and different concepts like that. But um the no the training was more kind of vinyasa based, I think, as well, but on the yeah.
Because I'm just curious about this because I had a comment or kind of a conversation on Instagram with someone yesterday about like the traditions of yoga and how maybe we are veering off from different traditions um and including other modalities and mixing styles and things like that. And the conversation was kind of right, is this right or wrong, or what way should we be approaching our yoga practices? And my view on it was always like, I love blending different styles and I love kind of exploring this aspect of one thing and that aspect of another. But I think you answered a little bit of it there, the way you said it's a more feminine approach.
Mm,
So maybe that's the difference. Maybe the more traditional, I don't mean traditional, but maybe the more kind of dogmatic approaches are a more masculine approach. And then maybe the
mm.
blending is the feminine.
It sounds like it is, and Anusara is certainly a newer style for sure. And it's I suppose it's a kind of a softer style,
Mm.
and one of the instructions is opening to grace, and I just always loved that. I started um practicing Anusara yoga back in 2010 or something, and it was just this gorgeous kind of feeling actually that
Mm.
word inspired, opening to grace, opening to possibility, while still being so rooted and grounded and open, or sorry, rooted and grounded, you're opening, and it's this beautiful instruction of being rooted while still being able to open. And I think that's something um that isn't a strictly dogmatic kind of, I don't know, it just feels more natural, more
Mm.
exuberant. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah. And that makes me also think about the other things that you do in your life as well. You're really blending the masculine and feminine because it seems like the yoga approach and the wellness approach is very feminine and you come to it from, a very feminine aspect, but then you've obviously got your law work as
Yeah.
well. That seems quite a masculine role. Um,
Yeah,
so
it's
how
a
is
balance.
that
Yeah.
to blend your yoga into
Mm.
your law work?
It's an interesting one. It's I definitely need the yoga to balance
Mm.
the law.
What type of law do you
Uh,
practice?
so I well I'm a barrister. I've been a barrister for the last 10 years, and it's criminal law that I practice in mostly. Um, and my I've I've written a book on the special criminal court. So basically, my expertise would be in national security, and the kind of criminal law and evidence and that. And the special criminal court is our non-jury court that we have in this country. Um, and so I suppose what drew me to that kind of area is actually that I have a master's in history, and I love history. Um I love the context of things. And I suppose, yeah, looking at, the 20th century and the history there, um, it is, it was just so, it was the kind of obvious type of interest for me was a court that is so steeped in history, and the why of the court is the context of our unique historical context in Ireland. And then what else is, I suppose, interesting to me, and more so than other areas of law, about criminal law and national security, is that I suppose human rights are impacted and constitutional rights are always kind of to the forefront of the conversations, because I suppose for national security reasons, human rights can be constricted, um, and in some cases suspended in their entirety, such as in the non-jury court, where the right to jury trial is actually suspended. Just
Okay, so we just like to take a quick little break. Alyce had some motherly duties to attend to.
Thank you. Yeah, these
So
things come up.
yeah, but should look, this is
They don't
how it
realize you're
goes,
doing
isn't
a podcast.
it?
um,
So we were talking about your law work and how it maybe has more masculine approach and the yoga is
yeah,
more, maybe your more feminine approach to life. So how the two of
yeah,
them blend maybe.
yeah, exactly. So I was just explaining how yeah, how the law, the type of law that I'm interested in, the national security stuff and the criminal law is quite like, it's got a lot of history, but there had like a really strong focus is the rights based stuff. And also I suppose meeting the clients, meeting the people that are there, is really kind of, I really enjoy those parts of it, like the dealing with the rights arguments, the constitutional rights, the human rights kind of questions, and then also just meeting the people. It's quite, and just people from so many diverse backgrounds, and often very difficult backgrounds, and the people
Could you
who
give me an
are.
example, like of somebody that you might be representing, and there's some sort, like an example of some case that you might be working with, like what is
So the type of
involved then?
cases, yeah. So the well, so I'll preface this with saying that I've kind of stepped away from court work a little bit just to find a little bit more balance in my
Mm,
life. And so I can speak to that in a second if you'd like. But yeah, the type of cases that I would have had would have been in the years kind of coming up to when I stepped back, would have been special criminal court cases, which are say subversive related offences. So, say a murder or something like that. The people who would be the accused persons there, I would represent those. Those are obviously big cases, so they'd have
mm,
senior counsel as well. I'd be the junior counsel, um, and yeah, so they're quite interesting cases, because
mm,
I suppose that the people that you meet, they kind of speak to you about, yeah, I don't know. I suppose, yeah, they're just interesting people, perhaps.
mm. Well, I was going to say it
But
gives you
not only, yeah,
a very unique um perception of the people involved in these type of
yes,
I don't know what to call it. But so say example, somebody might read something in the newspaper. I mean, you get the really human side of that by meeting
Yes.
people that are involved in these situations.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, exactly. And actually, one thing even I also I teach national security and evidence law and that in university. And I often recommend the podcast The Witness, which is a podcast just about somebody, Joey O'Callaghan, who was in the witness protection program. And it was just, even for me, and I had like 10 years experience of dealing with people in criminal law, and people from all doing all types of different types of
Yeah.
offenses, but for me that was a really interesting moment to listen to Joey O'Callaghan talk about why he got into crime, and it was really out of it being forced, as from being at a really young age, and um, through fear, and
Mm.
through being introduced to drugs, um, and it's just this kind of we always kind of talk about that people don't have a choice, and people come from a a difficult background, but it's often we don't think about like that small kids can actually be forced into doing it as
Hmm.
well. So yeah, I think just looking at the human side is
Mm.
really important for me as well. And I've started to do a little bit of work with the parole board, and looking at victims, or like talking to victims of offences as well. So seeing it from that side as well,
Mm.
and dealing with people. And again, it's that human experience is actually being there with someone as they're going through perhaps a trial, or victim dealing with somebody getting out on parole or something like that. So I think that's kind of the bit that I find most rewarding, and
Mm.
that's the kind of maybe feminine quality of being able to hold that. But also, yeah, I did have to actually I found the demands of the job were quite intense. It was a
Yeah,
very
sure.
intense job, that you have long hours, and just as a mom, I felt like I wasn't really doing any of those jobs well. When
Mm.
I was trying to do that at the same time as being present for my kids, and like, yeah, we I breastfeed them, and then we co-sleep, and
Mm.
you're trying to do that, and you're basically, the candle's being burnt at both ends.
Mm.
And with the bar, doing work in trials, you're kind of you kind of at times have to just drop everything and go. And it's very, like, there's a lot of there can be urgency with the job. And I just found, I had a couple of moments where, like, during a birthday or something like that, that I
Yeah.
had to kind of drop things and go, because they're very serious matters. You're dealing with something, to do with witness protection or something, and it's really got to be responded to. But at the same time,
Mm.
that is difficult, at trying to have a balance, and not only as a mother, but just even for myself, um, trying to work in, you know, practices that are nourishing, getting enough sleep, eating properly, making food that's good, and
Yeah.
yeah, and being there with my family, my kids and stuff. So I kind of wanted to take back the control a little bit, and I
Mm.
had some really gorgeous life coaching sessions with a girl, Bronwyn, in metamorphosis, and she really helped me kind of focus and focus on what my values in life are, and
Mm.
where I want to put my time. And so I yeah, I kind of just figured out that I needed to take control out of it. I love the subject matter, I love the stuff that I do in terms of um the the national security and the criminal law.
Mm.
I love all the stuff, and I love the context, and I still teach it and everything, but it's just the way of the job, all the trappings of the job
Yeah.
weren't working for me.
Yeah.
So I took a step back from that, and I still teach. I teach on the barrister training course, and I teach in university. I teach those subjects in university too. And then I also, yeah, as I said, do the parole board, and I do some advisory work as well. Um,
Is that
so
all?
it's that, yeah, yeah. Well, I think it's just to try and actually have control over my own day and my own week,
Yeah.
a little bit more
Mm.
than it was, and like really try to keep true to the yoga, try to live the yoga, that,
Mm.
it does make you reconsider how you want to live your life.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I was thinking when you were talking about all that there, you must have worked with other people that maybe didn't take that step back and are
Mm,
burning the candles at both ends and are,
absolutely. Yeah.
you
And you
know,
wouldn't believe the amount of people like in the because you're self-employed, um, people don't really say that kind of stuff out
yeah,
loud because they want
mm,
everyone else to think that they're doing well and everything.
yeah,
And so you wouldn't believe the amount of people that when I did take the step back, and I'm still doing part of it, like I'm still doing the advisory stuff. I just am in court.
yeah,
Um, but I made that decision to step back, and the amount of people that came out of the woodwork to say, God, I actually feel the same. And lots of men actually
yeah.
that, you would think
Well,
that,
because I was
oh,
actually,
yeah,
that's what I was going to ask you. You must work with lots of women, but then I stopped myself because why would it only be women like that are burned out?
yeah,
You know, the men
yeah,
obviously
yeah.
feel it too.
Yeah, and the women, I mean, to try to get support for like maternity and for breastfeeding breaks, for those kind of things, that's really really difficult. And for
Yeah.
just being a mother in that context is really hard. But yeah, certainly there's loads of men that also feel the same and feel the intensity of it.
Mm,
I think men are better at kind of going for things and doing them and not being so prepared. Whereas women, I think we try to prepare a little bit more and try to do more things to be prepared for it.
mm,
And not to say that men don't prepare, but like I think we kind of have it maybe trouble being confident in ourselves
mm,
and back in ourselves, believing in
mm,
ourselves. And so yeah, I think that maybe just is something that comes up in the context of a stressful, intense job like that. It's harder to do that job if you question yourself and
mm.
want to do more and do things perfectly. Um, but yeah, it was amazing the amount of people that came out of the woodwork and said, I also feel burnt out, I feel stressed, and it's almost like it has control over your life as opposed to you having control over it.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure. I'm
Hmm.
sure. Um, so this makes me want to move on to, so I presume a lot of what your work was in law has influenced your feelings and your action around um what's happening in Palestine at the moment.
Mm.
So one of the reasons that pushed me to really ask you to come onto the podcast was so we're in the same group that Kitty has a WhatsApp group for all of us that are involved in Revolution Period. And a conversation came up about, I think it was about how there was a teacher who maybe wasn't speaking out against what's happening in Palestine, and someone felt disappointed about that. And that opened up a conversation about, do people need to be publicly outspoken? Do people need to show their support, especially within the work that they're doing? And your response just really, I thought was really beautiful. So you've also written a blog about the link between yoga and activism, which was really interesting as well. It's on the Yoga Picnic website. I'll put a link to that there as well, actually, in the show notes. Um, and I'm trying to find, you said something else here as well about we need to ask a question to ourselves.
Yes, that was a Tara Brach quote. All right, that is basically my kind of um my the starting point for me, I suppose, is the meaning of yoga, the
Mm-hmm.
unity, the oneness, the fact that we're all connected to Mother Earth and her beings, everybody on it. We're just all connected. Um, and I think that one often I've done last year did a meditation course with Tara Brock, and I've read tons of her stuff and been kind of listening to her talks for years now. And one thing that she says actually quite she has said about a number of different things, but also has said in this context is um is to ask that question, what is love asking of me here?
Yeah, that was it. It's
Yeah.
lovely.
And it's just that I think coming back to that question is really important, and it can be different for different people. It's just that if you can answer that kind of truly and authentically and feel like what you are doing, your actions are with integrity,
Mm.
then I think that you know go forth and do as you're doing. But for I think for me anyway, inaction is also action. Being
Mhm.
silent is also is something.
Mm.
Um, and that is you are creating an impact by being silent. And there are obviously, principles of yoga that come into play here. And I talk about them in the blog. The principle of ahimsa is obviously non-violence. Satya is truthfulness. Um, but also brahmacharya, the rightful use of energy. So, using your energy wisely. I did find it actually. I had I don't mind sharing it. I had a breast cancer scare before Christmas, and I just had to be present with my kids and with my family, because it was a scary time. And I I just needed to turn I could just delete Instagram from my phone
Mm.
completely. But I did find that it was important to be sharing stuff on Instagram and socially around even just meeting up for marches or different things to support the Palestinian cause. And but I couldn't do that because I just at the time for my health, I just had to
Mm.
delete the app because it was just busy and it was making me pick it up, and I
Yeah,
needed
yeah.
to be present. Um, but it became really important for me to show up at marches to donate money. My mum has a friend from Palestine. He's a young cartoonist who lived in Galway, and he went back to Gaza like a couple of days before October 7th, and he then got stuck there. He was one of those little kids who flew kites in on the
Mm.
beach in Palestine that they broke the Guinness World the Book of Records. And Yeah, I felt like for him we needed to raise money for all of these,
Mm.
like obviously these beautiful people. We had to do something, and so for me, using my voice, donating, turning up at marches, talking to people about it, researching about it, and in
Mm.
terms of getting like academic sources that we can trust, um, all of that was really important. And I do understand, I suppose, people who don't want to have different reasons for that. Um, and I do think it's important that um, you know, we like the kind of the idea of cancel culture has kind of
Mm.
it's been sitting with me kind of uneasily, because as an academic, I think that um we need discourse. We need to, in order to advance ideas, we need to be able to talk about them. Um, and it's almost like I've heard it described recently as the book burning of
Yeah.
the current book burning. And it is, I mean, like it may be that there's unpopular ideas or things people are saying, but we do need to talk about them. And so I think that's why I suppose for me, it's important to kind of share academic sources that are good historical sources, and to do things that are, feet on the ground activism. Um, and I know I do think there's a place for social media as well, for social media activism as well. But it is a very interesting question. But yeah, for me anyway, and in line with how I would interpret the yoga, is staying inactive is also is
Mm.
action. And I think, yeah, what is love asking of me here?
Mm.
I mean, we can apply that question to so many different things in our
Yeah.
lives. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, yeah.
No, it's really beautiful. That's what really struck me is just that question. Um, because I spent so much time over the last few months just what do I do? How do I do it? Is this the right thing to do? Is it the wrong thing to do? Especially with, yeah, bringing some of my views and sharing things on Instagram and bringing combining some of the yogic principles in
Mhm.
relation to what's happening. Like sharing that in classes is a bit scary because, you're like, how are people going to react to this? But
Yeah, and you kind of think, well, people are not coming here for, this, they're coming to do a
yeah,
yoga nidra or whatever. And
yes. But then
yeah.
it kind of just felt that it's too big. When you get those, I don't know if you ever experience this, you get this feeling internally and it has to come out. Like
Hmm.
I remember oh, one night in a yoga class months ago, like it must have been just after October 7th. And yeah, I just had something in my heart that had to move up and had to come out, and I had to say it, and I had to say that we can use our yoga to
Yeah.
support and to try and create a more peaceful world, even if it's in our own little communities. Like, but
And you have been doing that, haven't you? You've been doing like events, and your support events have been
yeah,
really popular.
but like that, I've come and gone from it. I've taken breaks from it as well because it's overwhelming, and I even feel silly saying that it's overwhelming. How privileged of me that I get to take a break from it, you know.
Mhm.
But yeah, I kind of have had to step back from it at times,
Mhm.
and come back
And you
again.
come back, yeah, and
Yeah.
you do. And I think even just small things like, you know, just even in a yoga class, a small word,
Mm,
or something. I mean, even last night I taught a pregnancy class, and I finished it with, shanti, shanti, shanti,
mm,
peace, peace, peace. And for me, you know, that's screaming out, this is what we want, and that's so relevant. And
mm.
people can take whatever parts of whatever you share
Yeah.
they want as well. Um, yeah, yeah, it is. It's a difficult. It's such a difficult time. I think it's the worst thing
But
that we've
I
ever
just,
seen.
no, it absolutely is. But I can't stand for um any idea that yoga should be separate to any of this. I absolutely don't agree with that. I think
It
yoga,
can't.
at the heart of yoga, it is about supporting people that are suffering and lifting them up and trying
Absolutely.
to create peace,
Yeah.
you know?
That is the essence of it. That is what it is. It's unity. It's
Yeah,
oneness. We're all connected. Yeah.
yeah,
There's
yeah.
no other way. And
Yeah,
I think it's the
absolutely.
same as, I mean, you might, be practicing yoga, and start to maybe eat better or something, that it gradually seeps in. And
Yeah.
then, eventually, the practices, um, and the embodiment practices, all of it, it makes us make these deep inquiries of
Mm,
ourselves. Like,
mm,
is what I am doing, what I am eating, how I am living, my job, the way I am in the world, how I support other people and causes,
mm.
is that, am I being true to myself? Am I
Yeah.
being true to do I have integrity in how I'm living?
Mm,
And I think that again, the brahmacharya, the rightful use of energy,
mm.
am I channeling my energy into,
Yeah.
something that's not important? And yeah, as you say, it's not, it is always connected, the yoga and
Mm.
the world.
Yeah, and I think those reflections make us realize that, there can be different ways. I mean, especially with the menstrual cycle work, I think that we do, things don't have to be linear. Things don't always have to look the same as everybody else. And I mean, even the shift that you made from your work to maybe be with your family more, or we have to reflect on what we're doing and make sure, is this the way that I want things to be, and we can change them, and it can be very scary and it can be very challenging.
Hmm.
But
And you can do the wrong thing as well.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
totally, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Um, but we don't just have to follow the same thing just because that's how it was done before.
Hmm. Yeah. And I do think as well that people, um, who kind of say, why aren't you saying anything about this? They're just screaming from every physical thing in their body, every cell in their body, that, it's a physical reaction, I think, as
Mm,
well. I mean,
mm,
how can you not say anything, especially somebody who's involved in these practices? Um, but again, I do think that, we just have to be so mindful of, you know, of the why somebody isn't
yeah,
speaking out, or something.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not to yeah, it's not to place judgment on people who are not speaking out, I suppose. It's to, I don't know, I feel like first of all, it's in me, like it's that physical reaction in me that I
Yes,
have to say something. And also, maybe if I say something, someone else will say it too.
I think so. I think that you inspire people, um, by your voice. And so I
Mm,
think that is why my mum actually has been such a great influence on me. for that reason. She's always an activist. She's always been standing up for women's rights. For
Mm.
She's in Galway Anti-Racist Network. She's on the trade union. She's always marching for different causes, and she's such an inspiration. And it has inspired me, and I hope actually that I will inspire my daughters.
Mm.
And actually, a funny story. I had said we went to a march. I brought my daughters to we brought them to a couple of marches, but after one of them, well, before one of them actually, I explained to my daughter what we were doing there, and I have to say, well, I did kind of take a moment because I was like, how am I going to do this now?
Mm.
And I thought, okay, I said to her, well, we're just sending our love to the kids in Palestine, and there's soldiers being mean to them, and we need to send our love, and that's what we're doing. So we're going to shout as loudly as we can, and we send our love, because so anyway, we went and we sang the songs, and we she kind of enjoyed the rhythm of the march,
Mm.
of the chants and stuff. And then when we came home, she was singing "Free, Free Palestine."
Mm.
And she said, yeah, are the kids okay now? And I said, well, we just need to keep sending them love, and when somebody's being mean to somebody else, that's not very nice. And so she said, okay, well, that's good. So when he is being mean to me in school, I'm going to say, "Free, Free Palestine."
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, the
That was
sentiment is
so
there.
funny. And I just thought, yeah, we can inspire other people.
Yeah,
Definitely. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. This conversation always, yeah, like brings that physical reaction to me. Like I have to take a second to breathe, to
Yeah.
like let it go now, because
Yeah.
yeah, it's so intense
Yeah.
to even
Completely.
speak about. So yeah, God, I can't even imagine what it is like to
Experience.
be in a situation,
Yeah.
yeah, like that. But yeah, we'll move the conversation on a little bit, and I would love to find out about what you're doing with the yoga picnic.
Yes. So yeah, well, I suppose even just thinking about that idea of kind of living yoga, um it was so important to us to kind of always we devised the event. Just it was supposed to be a little picnic where a couple of people come together and do a yoga class and have some food after. But um yeah, the idea of bringing people together in community and creating a community there, but that is still true to the principles of yoga, that is authentic, um and that's very important for us. So basically, yeah, we set up, myself and my friend Mary set up the yoga picnic in 2 years ago, 2022. And we had only 150 people, and we had some beautiful teachers there, and people came, and we had a gorgeous day. We had market and everything, food and everything, and it was just beautiful. Stand up paddleboarding. We had a good few things that year. But then last year we increased it to 1,000 people, 1,000 attendees. And then this year we're increasing it again to over 1,500. And so
Wow.
we'll have over 100 offerings. Kitty McGuire will be there doing menstrual cycle stuff. Lou Horgan will be there doing women's yoga. My dad, Jack Harrison, will be there doing philosophy talks. Benita Wolf, his partner, will be there doing women's work, I think, as well, and ritual. And Mary Kennedy. There's so many
Mm.
amazing teachers that we're going to have. And as I said, over 100 offerings. So there's some cool things happening this year. Like we have an outdoor spa this year. So there's 2 outdoor saunas, outdoor hot tub, and some ice baths as well.
Wow.
And we'll have the stand-up paddleboarding, which is always really popular, the cow ceremonies. So yeah, so I think, but I suppose the main thing for us is to get teachers that are just the most beautiful, amazing teachers, and that are really true to the practice. And we do have the most amazing teachers. And I think that people can come, even people who've never done yoga before can come. Kids can come, dads can come, guys, all people from all walks of life, and there's something for everyone. Like even if you didn't want to do yoga at all, you could
Mm.
come, and there's drumming workshops and sound baths, and
Mm.
like healing sessions and things. And there's talks about mental health and nutrition and all these things. So it really is for everyone. And but we just wanted to keep that integrity, make sure we like
Mm.
sustainability is really important to us. We have a really cool initiative this year, which is that we're using. Kia Ireland is our main sponsor this year, and they are providing electric vehicles, and where we're going to plug all of our tents into the electric vehicles. So the electric vehicles are going to power all the tents, and so we'll reduce our reliance on diesel generators for that reason. And then we're also a portion of the ticket sales are going to restore land in the west of Ireland in with Home Tree Charity, so as part of restoration practices. So, and then across the festival site, we have a plastic ban. We have all our food vendors are vegetarian. They have to use materials that are or compostable containers and that. And then the artisan market is the same with local sustainably made products as well.
Mm.
So yeah, so again, we're trying to embrace the principles of yoga in the approach that we have to the festival.
Yeah, because I was going to ask, like,
Um,
if you've seen a big difference. So you said the first one you did was 150 people.
Yeah, so just myself and Mary who did that, and then the following year, my sister came on board,
Yeah.
my sister Katie, and then she's here again. So we've gone just increased like over 10 times, yeah,
Yeah.
or no,
And
just
how,
10 times, yeah,
because and it sounds amazing, and you're doing all the, one, like, you're doing amazing things with the state sustainability, but like, if you found difficulty in keeping your integrity as it's starting to grow, like, it must be challenging
yes,
as things get bigger. Because I had this conversation with someone before about um a yoga school, and as things grow and as they try to promote themselves more, like, it's challenging to keep that integrity.
yeah, completely. And you do have to make like I suppose difficult decisions,
Mm.
for us, around our partners. It's been, we really, really had, took a lot of time to decide around the partners that we wanted to get involved with. And for us, the fact that Kia were doing a lot of work, like a lot of the internals in their cars are all made from recycled ocean waste, and the fact that we are using the electric vehicles, and the electric vehicle side of the business,
Mm.
is what we're partnering with, and that was really important to us. Um, and similarly, a lot of the other partners are, all of the other partners have are kind of sustainable approaches to business. But there has been other businesses that we've been in discussion with, and
Mm.
you know, possibly not the most sustainable practices, and it is obviously, those are difficult conversations.
Mm.
Yeah, so there's lots of things around, I suppose, growing like that, but still kind of keeping your heart.
Mm.
And I suppose that is what's important. And we want it to be successful, and we want to, there's a certain like benefit to it getting bigger and getting bigger
Mm.
names and everything, because those bigger names can then promote the smaller names or people who are just starting out
Mm.
on their journey of teaching or anything. And so I suppose we see it like that. We see it like a platform, um, that can help, grow, and that it's a community,
Yeah.
of people, of the teachers that are there, and a lot of our teachers are returning teachers, and of the people who come,
Mm.
that can kind of come and tap back into that community of like-minded people,
Mm.
um, and almost like a gathering of the people, that you have such strong connections with through yoga, but you may not see them because you kind of might go to yoga class and go home, and everyone has a busy life and stuff, and so to
Mm.
be able to come and really immerse yourself in the the magic of yoga, I suppose, for the day. And I suppose I'm saying yoga in the broad sense, in that, meditation and sound healing practices and all these things as well.
Mm.
Um, but just immersing yourself in the magic of that is I suppose something that's really important to us. And I suppose the three of us, we just had our launch party last
Mm.
week, which was really successful in the Cumbria, and it was just such a great, beautiful kind of, the feeling there was just really beautiful. We felt, and we just kind of thought, God, we just love to go to the yoga picnic ourselves,
Yeah.
instead of working at it. I would love to just be able to just attend
Yeah.
it.
That's what happens when you
Yeah,
create things like this, because it's something that you want to go
yeah,
to or you want to do, and then you're like, oh, I'm working now, like, I don't get to enjoy it as much. But yeah, no,
yeah.
it's
So
amazing
that's
that you're
kind of our
offering it for people.
dream.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of our dream is eventually to get it to that stage where, we've done a lot of the hard grind and it's so much work. It is just
And let
so,
someone
so
else
much
run
work.
it and you enjoy
But
it.
yeah, exactly, that we can kind of get it to the stage where it's kind of, you know,
Mm.
streamline processes and hopefully we can just enjoy it a little bit more. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's really inspiring as well what you're talking about, because I've often had this conflict just with like my own small yoga business. That blend of yoga and business doesn't always go together.
No, no.
And you have to keep, for me, I just have to keep reminding myself the yoga has to come first, because otherwise, like, I could be in business doing anything, you
Yeah, well,
know?
exactly. Yeah. However, though, you have to get paid for what
Oh,
you're doing because
100%.
it's so important. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
but that
And
can
I do
that
think
can go.
sometimes,
That doesn't necessarily um diminish the yoga. But it's the other things like you were
no.
talking about, who you're partnering with, why you're
Mhm.
doing things, are you sticking to your principles, and it
Yeah.
seems, that you're really embracing that with this. So I
Yeah.
really admire that. And it is inspiring, like to see that it can be
Thank
done
you.
and it can grow into something bigger.
Yes.
Mm.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. It's been we've been so careful and we've probably taken kind of hours more to make decisions than we should be taking with, if we
Hmm.
just had our business hats on.
Yeah.
But we definitely like think about these things deeply. So yeah, thank you for
Yeah.
saying that. That means a lot.
But, okay, Alice, I've taken probably enough of your time because I know you're a busy woman and you
Ah,
have
great to
pe-
talk.
people that need your time more than I do. Although she's
Ah,
she's
just
still asleep, is she?
yeah, she was just a little bit sick, so now she's fallen asleep, so
Oh.
she's all good.
So I don't know, is there anything else that you want to tell us that you have coming up, or where we can find
Um,
you, how we can find out about the yoga picnic?
yeah. So well, I've got events going like the Celtic Festival and the Celtic Calendar Festival cross quarter events will all be happening throughout the year. Myself and Katie, my sister,
Mm.
run those together up on the Hill of Ishnock, and they are so the details of those will be on my website, aliceharrisonyoga.com. But also other I'm participating in different festivals and events throughout the year and throughout the summer. There's lots of really exciting things coming up. So yeah, so everything will be listed on the website or on Instagram, Alyce Harrison Yoga. Actually, it's with a Y.
Yes, I
That's
made that
not the way
mistake,
my
sorry. But
no,
I'll
it's actually funny. My dad gave me that Alice Kettler was my very first email address,
oh
and it stuck. It's Alice. Dame Alice Kettler was the first witch in Ireland.
yes, from Kilkenny. That's where, well, she
Yeah,
lived in Kilkenny. That's where I'm from.
okay. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you know all about her, and she spelled her name with a Y. In some
Yes.
texts anyway, and so he set that up for me. And then anyway, Instagram didn't give me Alice Harrison Yoga with an I, so I just went with Y. And then I was like, it'll be good for when I'm dividing myself from my legal career.
Yeah.
So anyway, so it's ALYCE Harrison Yoga.com. And then the yoga picnic is the yogapicnic.com and the tickets are there. And similarly, it's the yoga picnic on Instagram as well. So,
What date
um,
is that on?
yeah, the yoga picnic is the 7th of July.
Perfect.
Yeah, so it's great. So yeah, I'd love to see you at some of them or see anyone there. It'd be
Yeah,
great.
definitely. And I'm only thinking I didn't really get to talk to you much about the Celtic festivals and stuff, because I'm so intrigued with the Ushnock and everything that is there.
Yes,
It's an incredible site.
it's so
Um,
beautiful. And in
oh
fact, it was something that when I moved to Westmeath and I was feeling lonesome for the sea and that it was kind of I went there and the folks at Ishnock were so welcoming and they
yeah,
let me start myself and my sister start running these events up there and it has meant that I felt this connection to the land. It is
yeah,
it is such a magical, mystical place and this um just it has given me so much purpose to just run those events there with
yeah,
Katie. And yeah, the land, you've been there. It's the most
yeah.
incredible
It's
place.
hard to put into words. There
Yeah.
is a feeling there that is just incredible. Like
Mm,
it's really, really special. And it's not like there's nothing there as such. It's just
mm,
land. It's just the land, but there's an energy there that
yeah,
is
it is.
super.
Yeah, and we're doing we're in the Wellness Within tent actually at the Fire Festival next weekend.
Mm.
So
Yeah, I'm
I
gonna
don't
miss
know.
that as well.
Oh
I'm
no.
missing all these things this year. But yeah, I was just looking back on the pictures and video from last year. It's a really great festival, and
Mm.
that seems to be growing as well.
Yeah, it's
And
fantastic.
they're
They're doing
keeping
such a
their
good job.
integrity, and they are, yeah, they're really like guardians of that place up there. Like they're doing a fabulous job. It's brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. It is magic. And it's like going back in time when you go to the
Mm,
festival, the horses running and you can feel the
yeah,
vibrations on the ground and it's just amazing. And to see
yeah,
everyone there. Yeah.
yeah.
So
Okay, Alice, thank you so much.
you're so
It was
welcome.
really lovely to just chat to you. And
Yeah, that was lovely. Thank
yeah.
you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And
Mm.
I love all the stuff we talked about. It was so interesting. It was great for me as well.